Elvis Presley, the king who went to WW2 and was never the same again in the shadows of history, when the world was engulfed in chaos and despair, a question hangs heavy in the air. What if the king of rock and roll was destined to face a battle far greater than any concert could prepare him for? The year was 1943, a time when young men were called to serve, and few understood the toll of war. For one such man, the stage lights would dim, and the echo of music would be replaced by the thunder of gunfire. In Memphis, Tennessee, the sun hung low, casting a warm golden hue over the neatly lined houses of the suburb. The sweet smell of fried chicken wafted through the air from the local diner, mingling with the twang of country music spilling from nearby porches. Amongst this nostalgia, a young man stood dreaming beneath the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. Elvis Aaron Presley, just 18, with a head full of wild dreams and a heart full of music, was a beacon of hope in a world teetering on the brink of change. His raven black hair swept across his forehead, and his blue eyes sparkled with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. Beside him was his best friend, Jesse "Jet" Thompson, a tall, lanky figure with an easy grin and a passion for country music. Jet, always the encourager, had plans of his own to become a star. "Elvis, you can't just throw it all away. We're gonna be famous, man," he said, strumming his worn guitar, each note a reminder of the dreams they had shared since childhood. But the air was thick with tension that day, as the news of war loomed over them like a dark cloud. Elvis's mother, Gladys Presley, a protective and loving woman, felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She rushed out of their modest home, her eyes filled with concern. "Elvis, honey, you're too young. What are you thinking?" she implored, her voice trembling with the fear of losing her only son. Elvis's heart sank. He understood his mother's worries, he felt them too. Yet, the call to serve was strong, fueled by a sense of duty and the pressure of society enveloping him like a suffocating blanket. "Mom, I have to do this. It's my country," he replied, his voice steady but edged with uncertainty. Each word felt like a nail in his own coffin of dreams. The thought of leaving his music behind, of stepping into the unknown, gnawed at him. "Forget that. You're not just another soldier, you're Elvis Presley." Jet interjected, frustration boiling beneath his calm facade. "You've got a future ahead of you. Don't let them take that away." Elvis could see the passion in Jet's eyes, the fear of losing their shared dreams. But deep inside, he grappled with the conflict of loyalty to his country and his love for music, two worlds pulling him in opposite directions. The clashing emotions left him feeling lost, like a ship adrift on a stormy sea, its sails torn and tattered. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Elvis made his choice. He would enlist. The declaration hung in the air, heavy and final, as if sealing his fate. But what would this decision cost him? Would he ever return to the vibrant music scene of Memphis? Would the king of rock and roll become a mere footnote in the annals of war? The echoes of laughter and music faded away, replaced by the haunting sound of a bugle calling young men to duty. Elvis turned to Jet, his heart aching with the weight of his choice. "I'll be back, Jet. I promise," he said, but doubt danced in his mind like a ghost he couldn't shake. The following days were a blur of preparation, fitting uniforms, farewells, and the weight of expectations. Gladys's face was etched with worry, her hands trembling as she packed Elvis's belongings. "Just promise me you'll stay safe. Promise me you'll come home," she urged, her voice laced with desperation. "I will, Mom," he reassured her, though he couldn't help but feel that everything was about to change. With each step he took towards the unknown, he was leaving a part of himself behind, his dreams, his music, and the laughter of his best friend. As the train pulled away from the station, Elvis felt the finality of his decision wash over him like a cold wave. He gazed out the window, watching the world he knew dissolve into the distance. The rhythm of his life in Memphis was fading, replaced by the uncertain beat of war. And so, the king set forth on a journey that would define him in ways he could never have imagined. In the backdrop of a world at war, he would not only confront the enemy on foreign soil but also the demons of his own heart and soul. What awaited him on the other side? Would he return with a story to tell, or would he be forever changed by the horrors of battle? The stage was set for a performance unlike any other, one that would shape the man Elvis Presley would become. As the train sped toward an uncertain future, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The sounds of Memphis faded into the background as Elvis Presley embarked on a journey that would alter the course of his life forever. The moment he stepped onto the military transport plane, a cacophony of emotions surged through him, anticipation mingled with dread. He clutched the small guitar his mother had gifted him, a talisman from home, its strings worn from countless strums. In the chaos of war, it would be his lifeline. As the plane soared into the skies, Elvis gazed out the window, watching the landscape transform beneath him. The rolling hills of Tennessee faded into gray clouds, and soon the vastness of the Atlantic Ocean stretched below, a reminder of the distance he was leaving behind. A part of him wished he could turn back, return to the comfort of his mother's kitchen, where the scent of fried chicken filled the air and the melodies of country music floated softly through the windows. "Hey, Elvis!" Jet's voice pulled him from his thoughts. His best friend sat next to him, a reassuring presence amidst the uncertainty. "We're gonna make it through this, man. Just think about the music we'll write when we get back." Elvis forced a smile, but inside, a storm brewed. The excitement of adventure could not overshadow the gnawing fear of what lay ahead. The war was not just a backdrop, it was a living entity, a beast that would test their courage and resolve in ways they could not yet comprehend. Weeks later, Elvis found himself in the heart of Europe, where the air was thick with anxiety and the stench of gunpowder lingered like a ghost. The reality of military life was far harsher than he had ever imagined. Early morning drills left him exhausted, and the pressure of performing under his superiors' watchful eyes weighed heavily on his shoulders. Sergeant Roy "Rocky" Williams, a no-nonsense leader, was determined to mold Elvis into a soldier, and though Elvis respected him, he often felt like a pawn in a game he hadn't signed up to play. "Presley, get in line," Rocky barked one morning during a training exercise. The other soldiers looked on, and Elvis felt a flush of embarrassment. He was not just Elvis Presley, the dreamer, he was now Private Presley, and he needed to learn the ropes fast. But every time he tried to shake the nerves, memories of the stage crept into his mind. The cheers of fans, the thrill of performing, all of it felt like a distant dream. As days turned into weeks, the harshness of war began to seep into Elvis's spirit. The first time he witnessed the aftermath of an ambush, he felt as if the ground beneath him had crumbled. Friends he had made, fellow soldiers who shared jokes and dreams of home, were suddenly gone. The laughter that once filled their barracks was replaced with silence and grief. The sound of sobbing echoed in the night, and the weight of loss began to settle heavily on Elvis's heart. In the quiet hours of the night, he would sit alone, strumming his guitar softly, trying to drown out the sounds of a world that had become unrecognizable. The songs he played were bittersweet, reflecting the turmoil within him. He remembered the words of his mother, who had always told him that music had the power to heal. But here, in the darkness of war, it felt like a faint whisper against the deafening roar of conflict. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Elvis and Jet sat together on a makeshift bench outside their barracks. The stars shone brightly above, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. Jet turned to Elvis, his expression serious. "You've got to keep that music alive, man. It's who you are. Don't let this place take that away from you." Elvis nodded, but doubt lingered like a shadow. "What if there's nothing left to sing about when this is all over? What if all I have is the sound of gunfire?" "Then you write about it," Jet replied firmly. "You write about the pain, the heartbreak, and the hope. That's what great music is made of. You remember that, okay?" Elvis felt a flicker of hope at Jet's words, but it was quickly extinguished by the harsh realities of their situation. The next day, they received news of an impending mission, and the air was thick with tension. The weight of what was to come loomed over them like a dark cloud. As they prepared, the camaraderie that had once been a source of strength now felt fragile, hanging by a thread. In the hours leading up to the mission, Elvis found himself wandering the camp, lost in thought. He stumbled upon a group of soldiers gathered around a small radio, their faces illuminated by the soft glow. The music playing was a familiar tune, one that transported him back to Memphis, back to the life he longed for. For a moment, the weight of war lifted, and he closed his eyes, letting the melodies wash over him. But the moment was fleeting. The harsh reality of their situation hit him once again. He turned the corner and found Rocky, who was going over last-minute instructions with a group of men. "Listen up. This is not a game. You keep your head down, follow orders, and remember why you're here. We've got a job to do." As Rocky's voice echoed in his ears, Elvis felt the pressure mounting. The responsibility of protecting his friends and fulfilling his duty weighed heavily on him, but the thought of losing himself to the grimness of war terrified him even more. How could he remain true to his dreams when the world around him was crumbling? Will Elvis find a way to hold on to his dreams in the face of adversity? Stay tuned to see how he navigates this turbulent time, the narrator's voice urged, as the screen faded to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. In the depths of war, the battle for Elvis Presley's soul had only just begun. Would he emerge still holding on to the music that defined him, or would the scars of conflict forever change the king of rock and roll? If you're enjoying this incredible journey through Elvis's life, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join us as we explore the trials and triumphs of a legend caught in the crossfire of history. You won't want to miss what happens next. The sun was barely rising over the horizon when Elvis found himself standing on the precipice of chaos. The air, thick with tension, was a stark contrast to the nostalgic memories of Memphis. He could almost hear the familiar chords of his guitar, a soothing balm he desperately missed. Instead, the distant rumble of artillery and the stench of gunpowder permeated his senses, a grim reminder that he was no longer the carefree boy who danced to the rhythm of life. Elvis, now a soldier, was assigned to a unit stationed in France, tasked with a covert operation that had been deemed crucial for the Allies. The mission was straightforward: infiltrate a German stronghold and gather intelligence. But as they huddled in the muddy trenches, the weight of reality settled on their shoulders. This was not the glamorous life of a rock star, this was survival. "Stay sharp, Presley," Sergeant Rocky Williams barked, his voice cutting through the morning fog. "This isn't a concert. It's life or death." Elvis nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had watched his friends prepare for this moment with a mix of courage and dread, and today, as they geared up for what could be their final act, he felt the same. Jet, his best friend, stood beside him, a determined look on his face. "Hey, if we make it through this, I owe you a duet, right?" Jet tried to lighten the mood, his voice shaky but hopeful. Elvis chuckled, the sound tinged with nervousness. "You bet. Just make sure you don't forget the words," he replied, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. As they moved out, the landscape transformed into a chaotic symphony of gunfire and explosions. Elvis felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, but it was laced with an undercurrent of fear. Each step brought him closer to the heart of danger, where the sound of laughter and music was replaced by cries of anguish and the grim reality of war. The operation began with a precision that soon unraveled. They crept through the shadows, navigating the terrain with the stealth of trained soldiers. But as they reached the stronghold, everything changed in an instant. An alarm blared, shattering the silence, and German soldiers emerged from the darkness like phantoms, weapons drawn. "Fall back!" Rocky shouted, but it was too late. A barrage of gunfire erupted, sending Elvis and his friends diving for cover. The world around him became a blur of chaos, shouts, and the deafening roar of gunfire. In the chaos, time seemed to stretch. Elvis watched as Jet was hit, falling to the ground, a look of shock on his face. Panic clawed at Elvis's heart as he scrambled towards his friend, but another explosion echoed nearby, knocking him off his feet. The world spun, and darkness enveloped him. When he regained consciousness, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils. The bright lights above felt blinding, and for a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Slowly, his surroundings came into focus: a military hospital, the sound of moans and the hustle of nurses weaving through the halls. It all rushed back to him in a flood of horror, the mission, the chaos, and Jet. "Elvis!" A familiar voice broke through the haze, and he turned to see Rocky, his expression a mix of concern and relief. "You're awake. You took quite a hit." "Jet, where's Jet?" Elvis croaked, panic rising in his chest. "Stable. He's in another ward," Rocky reassured him, though his eyes betrayed a deeper worry. "You both are lucky to be alive. We lost a lot of good men today." Elvis's heart sank. The weight of loss settled heavily upon him, like a shroud that threatened to suffocate him. He could still hear the echoes of laughter and the dreams they had shared. The music that once filled his soul felt distant now, overshadowed by the harsh realities of war. Days passed as he recovered, and with each passing moment, the pain of his injuries paled in comparison to the emotional scars forming in his heart. One afternoon, while lying in his hospital bed, he heard laughter drifting down the corridor. Curiosity piqued, he pushed himself up, wincing at the pain, and shuffled toward the sound. As he approached the source, he found a group of soldiers gathered around a fellow patient, a guitar in hand. The soldier strummed a few chords, and the room filled with a sense of camaraderie that breathed life into the dreary atmosphere. Elvis watched, captivated, as the men began to sing, their voices rising in unison, a bittersweet melody that spoke of home and hope. Something stirred within him. Music had always been his refuge, a place where dreams flourished and sorrows faded. Maybe, just maybe, it could be a source of healing for these weary souls. "Hey," Elvis called out, surprising himself with the strength that carried his voice. "Mind if I join?" The soldiers turned, their faces lighting up with recognition. "Elvis Presley! Get over here, man," one of them exclaimed, and they shifted to make room for him. As he took the guitar, his fingers hesitated over the strings. Memories flooded his mind, performing in front of crowds, the thrill of the spotlight. But now, those memories felt like a distant dream. Taking a deep breath, he began to play a simple melody, his heart pouring into every note. The soldiers listened intently, their weary faces softening as they were transported to a different place, if only for a moment. "Sing with me," he urged, and slowly, they joined in, their voices harmonizing, filling the room with a warmth that seemed to erase the horrors they had faced. In that moment, something shifted within Elvis. The realization dawned on him like a sun breaking through the clouds: music could indeed heal. It had the power to uplift spirits, to connect people, and to provide solace in the darkest of times. As the last chord faded, the applause that erupted felt like a balm to his soul. He had found purpose in the midst of despair. And as he looked around at the faces of his comrades, he knew that his journey was far from over. But then came the twist that would change everything. As he settled back into his bed, a nurse approached him, her expression somber. "Mr. Presley, there's someone here to see you," she said, leading him to a quiet corner of the ward. Elvis's heart raced as he turned the corner, only to be met with a sight that left him breathless. Standing there, with tears in her eyes, was Gladys. "Mom," he gasped, the weight of all he had endured crashing down upon him. "Oh, my baby," she cried, wrapping her arms around him, holding him tightly as if afraid he might slip away again. "I've been so worried." As they embraced, a flood of emotions washed over him. The laughter, the music, the camaraderie, all of it was overshadowed by the harsh reality of war. But now, in this moment, he felt a flicker of hope reignite within him. "Mom, I've learned something," he whispered, pulling back to look into her eyes. "I think I can use my music to help us heal, to help everyone heal." Gladys smiled through her tears, but her expression quickly shifted to concern. "Elvis, this war is taking so much from you. You can't just forget about it." But he shook his head. "I don't want to forget, Mom. I want to remember and honor those we've lost. I want to heal through my music." And as he shared that revelation, the twist of fate became clear. The war had changed him, shattered his illusions of fame and fortune, and yet it had also awakened a deeper purpose within him. He was no longer just a boy with a dream, he was a man shaped by the trials of life, ready to use his gift for something greater than himself. In that military hospital, surrounded by the sounds of recovery, he made a silent promise: he would return to Memphis, not just as a performer, but as a beacon of hope, using his music to heal the scars of war. The king would rise again, forever changed, and this time, he would reign not just in the hearts of music lovers, but in the souls of those who needed it most. And so, the journey began, not just for Elvis Presley, but for everyone who had felt the grip of despair. Music could transcend pain, and Elvis was ready to share that truth with the world. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the hospital courtyard where Elvis found solace in the sound of his guitar. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, yet amidst the sterile environment, he had discovered a new melody, a tune that resonated with pain, hope, and healing. Each strum echoed the stories of his fellow soldiers, their laughter and tears intertwining with the notes he played. It was in these moments that Elvis began to understand the transformative power of music, realizing it was not just a pastime but a lifeline. Days turned into weeks as Elvis recovered from the harrowing experience of the failed mission. The scars of war ran deep, not only on his body but also in his mind and soul. Memories of his friends who had suffered alongside him haunted him, yet each chord he played seemed to lift some of that weight. His ability to connect with the wounded soldiers through song became a source of strength, a bridge between despair and hope. He saw how music united them, offering a reprieve from the brutality of their reality. As he strummed his guitar, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. No longer was he just Elvis, the aspiring rock star from Memphis, he was now a voice for those silenced by fear. He began to write songs inspired by his experiences, channeling the chaos of war into heartfelt lyrics. His newfound passion ignited a fire within him, and for the first time since enlisting, he felt he could make a difference not only for himself but for others as well. In the evenings, the hospital would fill with the sounds of camaraderie as Elvis gathered the soldiers around him. They would share stories, laughter, and sometimes tears, bonding over the music that had become their shared language. Elvis's performances became a cherished routine, a beacon of hope that broke through the darkness of their situation. Each song was a reminder that even in the depths of despair, joy could still be found. One evening, as Elvis strummed a particularly moving melody, he caught the eye of Sergeant Rocky Williams, who had been watching from the doorway. The tough exterior of his superior softened, and for the first time, he approached Elvis with a sense of respect. "You've got a gift, kid," he said, his voice gruff yet tinged with admiration. "Don't ever forget that." Elvis felt the weight of those words. He had been so focused on his struggles and fears that he had nearly lost sight of the dream that had driven him in the first place. It was time to reclaim that dream, not just for himself but for all the men who had fought beside him. With newfound determination, he made a promise to continue his music, to use it as a tool for healing, and to return to Memphis not just as a soldier but as a musician ready to share his story with the world. As his recovery progressed, Elvis began to think about what awaited him back in Memphis. He envisioned standing on stage, a spotlight shining down, surrounded by fans who had missed him. But he also knew he had changed. The boy who had left home was gone, replaced by a man who had faced the harsh realities of life and emerged stronger. He would carry the memories of his fallen comrades with him and honor them through his art. When the day finally arrived for him to leave the hospital, there was a mixture of excitement and anxiety swirling within him. He was ready to return home, yet he understood that the journey ahead would be different. As he stepped outside, the crisp air filled his lungs, and he felt the weight of the past begin to lift. He was not just Elvis Presley, he was a survivor, a storyteller, and a warrior for peace through music. Back in Memphis, the streets buzzed with life, yet everything felt different. The diner still smelled of fried chicken, and the sweet twang of country music still filled the air. But for Elvis, that familiarity was now laced with the bittersweet knowledge of what he had witnessed. He was welcomed back as a hero, yet he felt the need to share the truths of his experience. Elvis quickly began to perform again, but this time, his songs carried deeper meanings. He wrote about love, loss, and the resilience of the human spirit. His performances were electrifying, and audiences were captivated not just by his voice but by the stories woven into his lyrics. The king of rock and roll had returned, but he was forever changed. Each note he played was a testament to the journey he had undertaken, echoing with the voices of those who had fought and fallen. His personal growth became a source of inspiration to others. Fans and fellow musicians alike began to rally around him, sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. Elvis became known not just for his music but for his compassion, using his platform to raise awareness about the impact of war and the importance of mental health for returning soldiers. As the years passed, Elvis continued to honor his past while embracing his future. He established music programs for veterans, creating safe spaces for them to express their experiences through art. His heart remained open, and he became a symbol of hope for those who had endured similar battles, showing that it was possible to find light even in the darkest of times. In his later years, Elvis reflected on his journey, often speaking about the impact of his service and the lessons he learned. "War changes you," he would say, "but it also teaches you to appreciate the beauty of life and the power of music. We must never forget those who fought for us and the importance of sharing our stories." The legacy of Elvis Presley was not just about rock and roll, it was a testament to resilience, transformation, and the healing power of music. He had gone to war, faced unimaginable challenges, and emerged not only as a musical icon but as a beacon of hope for many. As the screen fades to black, the voice of Elvis echoes softly, "If you've ever found yourself lost, remember that there is always a way back. Music is the bridge that connects us all. Share your story, lift each other up, and never stop believing in the power of dreams." If you've been inspired by Elvis's journey, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on our next adventure through history, music, and the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching, and remember, your story matters too.